Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Ranga here, and in this video guys, we will talk about what is a SOC. That is, we will talk about the chipset which is present under your smartphone. So guys, this video is going to be interesting. Make sure to watch it till the end, and we will also discuss about the factors which decides how powerful your smartphone is. So if you end up liking this video, hit on that like button and also consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. With that said, let's head into the video. Now guys, this SOC is something which is present in every single smartphone, and the full form of SOC is System on Chip. That is, a SOC contains all the parts of a system, or to be more accurate, a SOC contains the most important parts of a system inside a single chip. That is, guys, it contains the parts like the CPU, the memory, the input and output ports, and many more parts inside a single chip, guys. And this chip is so small that the size of the chip is comparable to the size of a coin, and this is the very reason why the SOCs are used in smartphones. That is, these SOCs are very small and compactable and yet very powerful, so that they can power your smartphones very easily. And this is the actual reason why SOCs are present in every single smartphone today. And guys, this SOC is the prime factor in deciding how powerful your smartphone is. Though yes, there are some other factors like how your software is optimized and a lot more. But in this video guys, we are purely going to deal with the hardware part. So we will talk about what are the factors which decides how powerful your smartphone is from the hardware perspective, guys. So now let's talk about the things which actually determine the power of your SOC and the power of your smartphone. So now we are going to talk about these things in brief. First, the clock speed of your processor. Second is the architecture used in your processor. Third is the core count. Fourth is the manufacturing process. And we are also going to talk about the size and the speed of the RAM and the size and speed of your storage. So these 6 things are the very most important, which actually determines how powerful your smartphone is. And whenever you are going to buy a new smartphone, you have to look at these 6 things in specific, guys. So we will see one by one in detail. Now first, talking about clock speed. The clock speed is the number of cycles taken by your processor to execute a set of particular instructions. Now guys, you should know that whenever you do anything with your smartphone, for example, let's say open camera app or open settings, play video, anything, your CPU sees it as instructions only, and your CPU executes these instructions so that you will be able to do the process. That is, when you open the settings app, your CPU sees it as an instruction and then executes it so that you are able to see the settings app on your screen. So the speed at which your CPU is able to execute this set of instruction is called as clock speed in very simple terms. And this clock speed is actually measured in a unit called hertz. So higher clock speed means that your CPU can execute a set of instructions at a much faster rate. So guys, if you have two processors which have different clock speeds, now let's actually say, for example, we take two processors. Let's say we have a Snapdragon 730G and then we have a Snapdragon 865, which is the flagship processor. This Snapdragon 730G has a clock speed of up to 2.2 GHz and the Snapdragon 865 has a clock speed of up to 2.84 GHz. And I think every one of you know that the Snapdragon 865 is much more faster than the Snapdragon 730G in every perspective, guys. So this makes things very simple, guys. Higher clock speed means your processor can execute instructions at a faster rate, hence making your experience much smoother. So now let's actually talk about the architecture, guys. I hope every one of you would have heard this word architecture. 32-bit architecture, 64-bit architecture, and so on. And guys, here we do not have much to talk about because nowadays every processor is coming with the 64-bit architecture. 32-bit architecture is almost outdated now. We are getting to see no processor with a 32-bit architecture. However, guys, just for you to know, I will explain you guys a 64-bit architecture is something which can actually store 2 power 64 different values. That is, it can store 1.8 into 10 power 19 different values. Now guys, unlike humans, computers store values only as zeros and ones. That is, anything you input into a computer, any file you save, anything you save, it saves it as 0 and 1s. It saves it as an alternating sequence of 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1 and so on. And a 2 power 64 means it can store 2 power 64 different values like this. And a 32-bit means it can store 2 power 32 different values like this. That's why guys, a 64-bit architecture is much more preferable, much more faster, much more advantageous than a 32-bit architecture. And one more important thing is that guys, only with 64-bit architecture, higher clock speeds were made possible, more number of cores were made possible, and today 64-bit architecture is the only existing architecture. We are not even seeing anything with 32-bit architecture nowadays. So now let's move on again and talk about the number of cores present in the processor. Again here guys, we do not have much to talk about because almost all the Android smartphones today are coming with that octa-core processor guys. We are not even seeing anything with lesser than that like a hexa-core or a quad-core processor. And guys, in very simple terms, the higher the core count is, the more number of processes your phone can do at the same time, which means that it can handle more number of tasks easily. Now guys, let's take a small example. Let's have two large, say large A and large B, and let's say large A has 4 rooms to accommodate guests and large B has 8 rooms to accommodate guests. So now you will be knowing that large B can accommodate more number of persons at the same time when you compare it to large A, because the A has only 4 rooms and B has 8 rooms, so that it can accommodate more number of people at the same time. It is the same thing with processor guys. If your processor has more number of cores, it can do more number of processes at the same time. That is, if we have an octa-core processor, the 8 cores can do more number of processes at the same time than what 4 cores can do at the same time. So having more number of cores means more number of processes can be done at the same time, thus making your experience much faster and much smoother guys. Again, this is not very absolute guys. For example, if we take Apple iPhones, even the latest Apple iPhone 11 has the A13 Bionic chip and it is a hexa-core processor only, it is not an octa-core processor. But the A13 Bionic chip is much more faster than even some of the flagship Android processors, and this is because of the software optimization and the way the processor is manufactured by Apple. So guys, again, this is not absolute, but in most cases, more number of cores generally means better performance and more smoother experience. Now let's talk about the manufacturing process. Now guys, if you want to know, a processor is actually made by combining lakhs and lakhs of transistors together, and this manufacturing process refers to how these transistors are combined together guys. Now let's for example say a processor X is manufactured using a 7 nanometer process. It means that the gap between each transistor inside the processor is 7 nanometers. Now for example, let's say another processor, let's say processor Y is manufactured using a 12 nanometer process. It means that the gap between two consecutive transistors inside the processor is 12 nanometers. So this is what meant by manufacturing process. The manufacturing process refers to the amount of gap present in between the two consecutive transistors inside a processor. Now let's see how this manufacturing process affects the efficiency and the performance of your smartphone. Now guys, let's take the example of the X processor and Y processor. The X processor was manufactured using a 7 nanometer process and the Y processor was manufactured using a 12 nanometer process, right? So in the Y processor, as you know, the consecutive gap between two transistors is actually much higher than what we saw in the X processor. So it means that more energy will be taken by the Y processor to transmit data between two consecutive transistors when we compare it to the X processors, guys. So it simply means that the 12 nanometer processor will drain much more battery when it is used when you compare it with the 7 nanometer processor. Guys, again, this is not absolute, guys. This does depend on how good your software is optimized. But in a nutshell, the thing is that if the gap is higher, it means that it will drain more battery, guys. So in this example, the 12 nanometer processor will drain more battery than the 7 nanometer processor. Though, guys, it does not highly affect the performance in any way. Still, the fact that it drains battery means that it will take a lot of battery in a very small time, so you will need to keep on charging your phone again and again. Now let's actually talk about the RAM and storage. I hope every one of you are familiar with the RAM and storage. If you have more amount of RAM in your phone, it means that you can store more amount of data in your background and retrieve them anytime without losing data. And if you have higher storage in your phone, it means that you can store more data, more apps, more games at the same time in your storage. Again, guys, there are some factors at which the speed of your RAM depends, and there are actually different types of RAM used. For example, guys, let us compare two different types of RAMs. One is the LPDDR4X RAM, which is used generally in the mid-range Android smartphones, and the LPDDR5 RAM, which is generally used in flagship Android smartphones. Now, the LPDDR5 RAM can store data, can retrieve data without losing any data much faster when you compare it to the LPDDR4X RAM. Again, guys, LPDDR5 RAM is much more costlier than the LPDDR4X RAM, so it will not be used in mid-range smartphones. And depending upon the amount of RAM you have, you can store more data and retrieve them without losing. Like if you have 8 GB RAM, you can store more data in the 8 GB RAM than what you can do using a 4 GB RAM. So this is all about RAM, guys. So now let's talk about the storage. Guys, all the mobile phones uses a type of storage called as UFS storage, which is universal flash storage. And guys, basically every one of you know that if your phone has more amount of storage, you can store more data, more apps, more games, more anything in that. And again, guys, there is one more thing. There are different types of UFS storage, and depending upon which type of UFS storage you have, the read and write speed will greatly vary, guys. For example, today's mid-range smartphones are having a UFS 2.1 storage, while today's flagship smartphones have UFS 3.0 or UFS 3.1 storage. And guys, apparently the UFS 3.0 or 3.1 storage is much faster than the UFS 2.1 storage, and it is very apparent when you try to access data, store data and things. So again, guys, the UFS 3.1 storage is much costlier than the UFS 2.1 storage, so they are not used in the lower end smartphones. So guys, these are the main factors which actually determine how powerful your smartphone is. Again, let's see what they are: the clock speed, the architecture, the core count, the manufacturing process, the RAM and the storage. So these things are the major factors which determine how powerful your smartphone is. So guys, that's it for this video. Hope this video would have been useful and helpful and informative and entertaining for you at the same time. So if you liked this video, guys, hit on that like button without fail, and also consider subscribing to our channel. That's it for this video, guys. Hope to meet you in my next video. Till then, guys, thank you, take care, bye bye.